We're going to talk about how to find certain function values given a table. There's going to be a lot of things going on here in this problem. So we're going to take it step by step. All right. So the first one that we have is h of what equals 2 times, I don't need that, parentheses, my bad, 2 times h of 0. Okay, so our unknown is going to be inside this parentheses, inside this first parentheses. Now, I've spent a lot of time working with students on the process, the pattern, the path to solve these problems. It is tricky. I am not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it because sometimes it is tricky for me because even in my brain, I get, tangled up in trying to figure these out. Okay. So, I mean, I'm right there with you guys. So let's do this step by step. The first part of our problem, we got to look to see what's my H value when my T value is 0. So when your T is 0, your H value would be -2, okay, which is this little guy right here. So H of question mark equals 2 times -2. Okay. Now, 2 times -2, I was getting a little ahead of myself. 2 times -2 would be -4. Okay, cool. So h of question mark equals -4. Now, your h of blah is -4. We've got to figure out what the t value is. So when your h value is -4, what is your corresponding t value? Well, -4. Therefore, the corresponding t value would be -1. So h of -1 equals -4. So our final answer, what we were missing was that -1. Okay? It is a process. It can be a little lengthy process, but it is a process. So let's take a look at the next one. And let me kind of zoom out real quick. I'm going to need some space. Now, the next one, h of question mark equals 2 times h of -3 plus h of 2. I'm just writing this back down, that's all. All right, so let's start finding all these pieces. So h of 2, okay, so where your t value is 2, what is your h value? -2, okay? Now let me recap. I'm just working on this one because this one looks a little bit easier to deal with. Your t value is 2, so then we go up to the t row, we go to 2, and then we look at the corresponding h value, which would be -2. So this would be plus -2. Or if you just wanted to be on the safe side and just not get confused, you can just say that is -2. Because plus and a negative would be negative. Okay? Now, we're going to do the same process for the h of -3. We go to our t value, which has -3, and then we look at the corresponding h value. That would be -1. So we would have 2 times -1, right? So now that we got all the numbers, we get to do all the multiplication and adding and subtraction. So 2 times -1, well, that would be -2, and then -2. Okay, cool. So -2 and a -2, when you add them together, you get a -4. So, well, And that's not the final answer because what we're trying to look for is inside the parentheses. Okay? It's that question mark inside the parentheses. So what H value has, or what T value has an H value of -4? I know it's a little confusing. So here we go to the H values of -4, okay, which we go on the H row, and then we go at -4, and then we look to see what the corresponding T value is. This little guy right here. So -1. Ironically, that's the same answer we got on the last part. Not a coincidence, I promise you. All right, so -1 would be our final answer for the B part of our problem. Okay, it would be the final answer for this one right here. All right, you do have to work at these. They are tricky. Okay, you got to work at them slowly. You got to be very careful and you have to be very patient with them. Trust me. So now let's look at part C. All right. So part C, H of what equals H of -2. Okay. So where your T value is -2, what is your H value? Well, when your T is -2, your H value is 0. Okay, cool. So now we get to find all the H values that have 0. What are the corresponding T values? Well, if we go to the H row, we get H, well, we have 0 right here. So we have the corresponding T value, which is -2. Hey, wait a second. We've got another 0 over here on the H row. We've got two answers. All right, so we get -2, and the corresponding T value would be 3. All right, so that means when we actually write it out correctly, H of -2 equals 0, and H of 3 equals 0. So we have two answers for part C. Now for part D, okay, H of question mark equals H of 1 plus H of 2. So H of 1, when we look at the T value of +1, the corresponding H value would be -1. T value of 2 is this guy right here. The corresponding H value would be -2. So we have -1 plus a -2. That would give us -3. So now we got to figure out when our H value is -3, what is our corresponding T value? So if we go on the H row and we try to find any -3s in here, oh, wait a second. We don't have any -3s. Okay. There's nothing in the H row that has a -3. So that means there is no answer for H of H of something equals -3. So part D has none. It would be in A, no solution, anything like that. Okay. So like I said, with these problems, you have to be very careful. My piece of advice, especially with how my brain works, work from the inside out. See how on some of these, like on part B, we we looked at this number inside the parentheses, we corresponded it to the T column or the T row, and then we matched it up with the next row. That's where we got these values down here. So you have to work from the inside out. You've got to work on the pattern. You've got to make sure the pattern makes sense to you. As always, let me know if you have any questions. I work with a lot of students on these all the time, so it's all good. Okay. I encourage questions, guys. Please, please, please bring them to me. Happy to help.